Hi everybody, today we have a quick video about solving absolute value equations. And just as a reminder, let's go over the definition of absolute value. The absolute value of a number is the distance the number is away from the number 0. Our notation is to use big vertical lines on each side of the number to show we're finding the absolute value. You want to be careful when you write that. You don't want the big bars to end up looking like a 1, so just be careful. Make sure you make them like a little bolder or a little taller so that you know you're dealing with absolute value. It's really important that the absolute value of a number is always positive, or it could be 0. And why that happens is when you think about if someone asks you how far you drive to work, you wouldn't say -5 miles or -8 miles. You would only answer in terms of positive numbers, or 0 if you're lucky enough to work from home or not work at all, which would be super lucky. So the idea is distance should be positive. We are only answering this as a distance from the number 0. So let's take a little bit of quick practice just to look at absolute values of numbers before we jump into equations. So I'm starting with the absolute value of -6 is just 6. Or if I have the absolute value of 6, it is also 6. If I have the absolute value of -3, it is 3. If I have the absolute value of 3, it is also 3. The only time I don't get a positive from using absolute value is if I have the absolute value of 0, which is 0. I want you to think of absolute value kind of like parentheses when you're looking for what is its order in terms of order of operations. So that says if I had something like 4 minus the absolute value of -2, I would first find the absolute value of -2, which is 2, and then I would do 4 minus 2 is 2. What you don't want to do is try to distribute this 4 minus absolute value of -2. I cannot put that there. This is a big no. So first do your absolute value, and then you could do the other parts. But do you think about order of operations as you proceed with solving these equations? So the basics I want you to know is anytime you have the absolute value of x is equal to a, then you're going to want to solve x is equal to plus or minus a. It should be that a is greater than or equal to 0 to start. Like we shouldn't have something set up where its absolute value of x is equal to a negative number. So let's try that. Really small to start. Absolute value of x equals 2. So we're going to remove the absolute value and we're going to say x is plus or minus 2. So 2 solutions. If it asks you to put them in, separated by commas, you'll write -2, 2. Slightly bigger, absolute value of x plus 3 is 7. So I'm going to start with x plus 3 equals plus or minus 7. I think it's easier if we just turn that into 2 separate equations. X plus 3 is 7. X plus 3 is -7. Notice only the number changed. What was inside the absolute value stays exactly the same and is still x plus 3. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So I have x is 4, there's my first solution. Subtract 3 from both sides on the other equation, I have x is -10. So 2 separate answers. You can check them by plugging them back in. You can see -10 plus 3 and absolute value is absolute value of -7, which is 7. I can do absolute value of 4 plus 3, which is also absolute value of 7. So you can see they both work. The next one says -3 times the absolute value of x is -72. So I do have a negative as my answer, but that's okay because my first step is going to be divide by -3. Now I have the absolute value of x is equal to positive 24. All I need to do is drop the absolute value sign, put a plus or minus in front of the 24. My next one says 2 times the absolute value of x minus 5 is equal to 12. So just like the last one, my first step is let's divide. So divide by 2, both sides. Absolute value of x minus 5 is equal to 6. I'm going to get rid of the absolute value. So I'm going to say x minus 5 is plus or minus 6. So x minus 5 is positive 6. X minus 5 is -6. Then I add 5 to both sides. So x is 6 plus 5 is 11. I add 5 to both sides of the other equation. I get x is equal to -1. This time I have the absolute value of 5x plus 3 is 33. So immediately I am dropping the absolute value sign. I have 5x plus 3 is plus or minus 33. So 5x plus 3 is 33. 5x plus 3 is -33. I subtract 3, both sides. 5x is 30, divide by 5, x is 6. Same thing. On the other equation, I subtract 3. So 5x is negative 36. I divide by 5. I'm going to leave my answer as negative 36 over 5. No reason to do decimals or something there. This is good. So here's my two solutions. A little bit bigger, I have negative 4, absolute value of x plus 6 plus 8 equals negative 12. So what I want to do is kind of peel things away and get the absolute value by itself so I can do the plus or minus. So I'm going to start with this 8, and I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So I have negative 4, absolute value of x plus 6 is equal to negative 20. Now I'm going to divide by negative 4, which says the absolute value of x plus 6 is equal to positive 5. So that negative became positive, which is really important. Now I have this absolute value equal to a positive number. I can drop the absolute value, which gives me x plus 6 is plus or minus 5. So it says x plus 6 is positive 5, x plus 6 is negative 5. Subtract 6 from both sides. Now x is negative 1. Subtract 6 from both sides, x is negative 11. So there are my two solutions. This next one, I just kind of flipped around where the negative is, and I have the absolute value of 5 minus 2x plus 9 is 16 to show you it's still fine. We do the same kind of steps. First step is get rid of that 9, so I subtract 9 from both sides. Absolute value of 5 minus 2x is equal to 7. Drop the absolute value sign. 5 minus 2x is equal to plus or minus 7. Now 5 minus 2x could be a positive 7. 5 minus 2x is negative 7. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, which gives me negative 2x is a positive 2. Divide by negative 2, so x is negative 1. There's solution number 1. Subtract 5 from both sides on the second equation. Negative 2x is negative 12. Divide by negative 2. X is a positive 6, so there's my second one. The last little thing in this section is I wanted to talk about tricky math. Watch for things that say absolute value of x equals negative 5. I cannot have a solution to this type of equation. We have said the absolute value of x should always be greater than or equal to 0. So if you get something like this, where the absolute value is negative, you can just simply say no solution. Again, trickiness says it may not always be that obvious. So I might have something like 4 times the absolute value of x minus 2 plus 6 is 2. So you take your first step, which says subtract 6. I have 4 times the absolute value of x minus 2 is equal to negative 4. A little warning, right? Like yellow light goes on and says, watch out. If you go a step further, 4 times the absolute value of x minus 2 is negative 4, and divide by 4, you'll see you have the absolute value of x minus 2 is negative 1, and hopefully right here, you're like, this is a problem, there's no solution. So that is the tricky part for absolute value. Hopefully you don't run into that in your homework or quizzes, but just in case, I wanted to let you know that there are those tricky little pieces out there. Good luck.